What's up, everybody? It's Chris Waggener. I'm an attorney out of the Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Florida area. I specialize in car accidents and slip and falls, things like that. But before I did that, I used to be a public defender and I did criminal law for a couple of years. And cops was my all day, every day. I would look at body cam footage, dash cam footage. I would talk to the witnesses. I talked to the police officers. I did trials, the whole kit and caboodle. In this one, there's a couple of cops in Texas that do what I think it's a bad stop of this guy. They suspect that he's got crack cocaine on him. And it's an old video, so I'm sure that the case has probably worked its way through the system at this point. But without further ado, let's get in.
Catch crooks and put people in jail. Still makes my day. We've got a full moon tonight, and a lot of people are superstitious, but it does seem to create a little more activity.
Full moon's a real thing.
People seem to be a little more active when they
Yeah, I don't put a whole lot of stock in the whole myth of the full moon. I just think it's more of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
We're in an area
also,
now.
You can see better at night with full moon.
Known for drug activity over here. They sell a lot of crack cocaine in here and hang out on the corners and wait for passing cars. So we're going to drive through the area now and see if we can't get any.
All right, let's break that down. So this is a police officer who clearly has a cameraman from cops in his car. He knows this, right? And he has decided that they're going to drive through what he would deem as a high crime area, specifically for the sale and purchase of drugs, specifically for crack cocaine. So what he's looking for are people who are offending in that way, right? They're committing those crimes: sale of drugs, purchase of drugs, use of drugs as well. I don't know in Texas if using the drugs is a crime in and of itself, but I know that in the state of Florida, the possession of drugs is illegal, and the possession of paraphernalia, the items that you would need to actually use the drugs, like syringes, needles, pipes, aluminum foil, and on and on and on and on. That's also illegal. So he would need something to suggest that the individuals that he's about to interact with are actually committing those crimes, more than just being in a high crime area. Just being in a high crime area by yourself, I could walk down this neighborhood. Well, just because I'm in the neighborhood, does that mean that I'm committing any crimes just because I'm in a high crime area? Of course not. That doesn't make any sense at all. So the law requires this cop, he has to have more than just like driving through a high crime area and people exist in that high crime area. He has to have more facts in front of him to suggest that someone's breaking the law. Like he could actually see a sale go down. He could see somebody trying to hit off of a crack pipe or something like that. He needs more than just being in a high crime area. So let's see if he can find something.
Anybody selling tonight? I've chased quite a few people in this neighborhood. You never know. See what's going to want to run from us tonight.
Sounds like you want someone to run.
Okay, I got a mail here on the bicycle talking to the guy with the car window. See what they're up to here. They saw me and they started driving on.
All right, so let's break this down. So what did he say? He said, I got a guy on a bike, which you can see over there in the right on the right side of the screen, and a guy in a car, and that when he drove by them, they started to move along their way. They started to go somewhere else. That's not going to be enough. He needs something more. It's not uncommon for people. There's a lot of people that don't like the police. That doesn't mean they're doing anything illegal. They just don't want to be around the police. So they see a police officer driving by and they say, we're going to leave. Doesn't necessarily mean they're doing anything illegal. Again, he's going to need more here. Just because they don't like seeing him doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong.
Up here.
Let's stop it right here. So let's look and see what we can see here. All right. So what we see here are two individuals, one of whom is on a bike, one of whom is outside of a car that I think is probably his. We don't really know that, but he's got his hand on the back of the trunk there, right? His car is in park. It seems like it's parked in a normal place, right? The lights are off, and he's got a license plate. They're outside of this, what looks like a lounge of some kind, so maybe it's a bar. Bike laws, specifically in the state of Florida, but I imagine that they exist in Texas as well. They matter, right? So we all have the right to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures. It's a Fourth Amendment right. It's in the Constitution. It's a big one. So for this police officer to restrict their freedom, to seize their persons, their actual body, right? Like that's what it means to be seized, not just having your stuff taken from you, to actually be restricted in your freedom to, leave the scene and go do whatever it is that you want to do. He's got to have a reasonable suspicion, what we say, a reasonable suspicion that they're committing a crime. And so one of the ways that they can do this, one of the ways that a police officer can do this, and a lot of police know this is a thing that they do, is they will find minor traffic violations, such as you don't have the right reflectors, you don't have the proper registration on the back of that white car there, or one of your headlights is out. And they'll use that. That's enough to stop them, because that's reasonable suspicion that a traffic infraction has been committed. Then they can write you a ticket. It's like speeding, like if you're speeding, they can pull you over and they can write you a ticket for speeding. And then in that interaction, they can do things like pat you down for weapons, look in the car, smell to see if they can smell, like, if you're smoking weed, they can smell the weed, things like that. It opens up the investigation from just being a traffic stop to being a drug investigation based on the totality of the circumstances. It's what we say in the legal world, based on the things that they see as they're doing the traffic stop. But right now, first of all, with the car specifically, I don't see anything wrong with the car unless he's able to run the plate and find out that the registration's bad. And then I can't see the taillight here with where the mirror is at. So I don't know if this guy on the bike is committing any infractions by being on the bike, but let's see what happens. Maybe they find something else. And I should say before I get going, it's not illegal or unreasonable for a police officer to just come up to people. You can come up to people. The difference is that when they come up to people on the street with no reason to think that the other person's committing a crime, if the person leaves and runs away, that's not enough for the cop to make an arrest. Just running away from a cop is not enough to seize them and to do an investigation.
On Langley. What's up, guys? Step over here for just a second, guy. Hey, you on the bike? Step right over here. Is that your car? Right here on this side. Right here on this side. Right here on this side.
All right, so he's gonna run.
I got one on the ground.
There he goes.
It's 4230. I got one black male on the ground. We're southbound on Barnum.
So again, I didn't see anything.
He's got blue shirt and blue pants.
All right, so while they're running here, I didn't see anything. I didn't see him do anything. I didn't see him. Sometimes, let's say he had drugs on him. They could reach into their coat pocket or like their pants pockets, pull the baggie out, and they'll try to do what he just did there, where they'll like obscure themselves from where the cop is, and they'll throw the baggie on the ground. They can be really not obvious about it. Sometimes most of the time they're not good at it, and they'll throw it so that they aren't in possession of the drugs. Maybe he did that. I didn't see anything that led me to believe that. It looked like he just walked to the other side of the car because he was scared of them, and then he just made a run for it.
Where?
Can they find him? It's pretty dark out there. Flashlights out. I mean, if he was going to stash drugs, if he was going to throw drugs, this is the time to do it. Because they haven't found him, and it's dark out here. He could throw it anywhere, and they'd never be able to find it.
Right in there. Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands now.
They found him.
I'll shoot. Let me see your hands.
Come
Put them on
man,
your head.
You're gonna shoot. Like,
put them on your head.
Give me a break. Yeah, he ran it from you, but it seems a bit much. All right, so he's going to get handcuffed now. So fleeing and eluding from the police is actually a felony in the state of Florida.
Put it back
So if they have a good reason to stop you and you run from them, you flee from them, you try to elude them, which is what he's doing here. He's eluding them by hiding in the bushes, or not the bushes, but hiding behind this tree. Fleeing and eluding is a felony in and of itself. But the question in this case is, was he rightfully seized? Was his freedom of movement
you run from me?
infringed upon? Or was it valid? Did the police officer validly detain him so that his flight is actually fleeing and
You always
eluding?
walk around with shirts in your drawers?
Yes, sir, because I took off, put on that shirt.
Usually they have different colored shirts, and they'll peel a layer off. That way when we're looking for a male with a dark blue shirt.
Okay, so I have problems with this too. So when police officers make an arrest, they're allowed to do what's called a search incident to arrest, and they can, pat them down and pick all this stuff out of their pockets because they're going to be doing that at the jail anyway, right? They'll document everything that they have, their pants, their belts, their shoes, if they have a cell phone in their pocket, their wallet, how much money's in the wallet. And but what they're really doing is they're looking for anything illegal. They're looking for drugs right now. So I have issues with this because, again, I don't think that there was anything wrong with this guy running. I mean, flight always looks like guilt. It's the truth. It's just the nature of human beings. And frankly, a lot of times when people run, it is that they have done something wrong. But I really don't see these police officers as having had a reason to keep him from running. You're allowed to run. I go running on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that I've done anything illegal. Just running when the police are around doesn't make you guilty of something. So they have to have more than that. Like I'm going back to they're in a high crime area, and these two guys are hanging out in front of a bar, and the police officer rolls up to him, and one of the guys takes off. I mean, the other guy didn't even take off. He was still there. So, what they think is that he has drugs on him. So now they're searching him. Now he could have gotten rid of the drugs, when he was in the dark there, but we didn't see that. No one saw that. So, and they would need to find the drugs in the yard as well.
And he peels the blue one off, and next thing we see is a male in a green shirt, and we think or assume it's another person, but he evidently wasn't hip to the program.
I didn't know.
32.
All right, so he didn't have any drugs on him because they would have pulled him out by now. We'd be seeing him if he had drugs on him. So he doesn't have drugs on him.
Hold up. Just hold up right there. Where's your partner at?
No, he was talking.
Davison, bring the car over here.
I don't have nothing. I was just scared. I was smoking that stuff.
Smoking that stuff? How long have you been smoking that stuff?
I just started back.
He ain't on parole or nothing for that?
All right, so right now is a good time for him to exercise his right to remain silent. If I was this guy's attorney, I would say don't talk to him, don't say anything, especially because I think the stop is bad. So even if he does say something that would incriminate him as far as this encounter goes, frankly, I think that if I was the attorney handling this case, I could probably get all of it thrown out because the initial stop was illegal by these police officers. And therefore, we would say that any evidence, confessions, even if they found drugs on him, which I don't know if they're going to find drugs on him. We'll see if they find it in the grass or on the sidewalk or something like that as the next few minutes go by. It's all what we would call fruit of the poisonous tree. It's just a fancy legal phrase of saying, listen, if it hadn't been for this illegal stop by the cops, they never would have found all this other stuff. The initial illegal stop by the cops poisons everything that flows out from that interaction. And so as a result, we don't allow any of that to come in when you're trying to convict someone for a criminal act.
You never been in jail for possession?
Yes, sir.
You have? You on probation right now for that?
Yes, sir.
You already did all your time?
Yes, sir. I don't have any. Watch your back.
Watch your back. There's a car. Here's a ride. Hold it right here.
All right, so they're going to put him in the back of the squad car.
Good search on him?
Yeah.
I don't have any.
They're going to search him again because they really want to get those drugs. They need drugs. That justifies this to them.
Let's just empty his pockets out.
Empty his pockets out.
He just got that little bit of dice and a couple of dollars. That's about all he's got.
What I'm doing out here, just try to buy a little $2-3 piece of dope.
Who you buying from? Him? In that car? You selling to him, aren't you?
No, I don't sell them.
Yeah, you selling to him. I saw y'all.
That's a youngster, man. That dude is 17, 16 years old. Man.
They smoke.
You're a man that's good moral character, I'm sure. I smoke dope. I don't sell dope.
Get in the car. Have a seat.
I got the wrong thing. Okay. You got the wrong one.
I got the right one now. We check over here and see what he threw down.
All right, let's see if we can find it.
A lot of these people live in this neighborhood, so you don't know if they are running home or running to a friend's house. Just so happens that this time he ran, he was cornered in a fence. I didn't know for sure whether he went over the fence or what, but when I approached, the fence is a pretty tall. Found him crouched down behind that tree over there. I think he was hoping we would overlook him with those dark clothing. That's another reason why they like to wear dark clothing so they can blend in.
All right, let's talk about him looking for this baggie now. Now that the suspect's in the police vehicle, he's out here looking for crack cocaine, and what I can only imagine is going to be a baggie or maybe like a pill bottle or something like that. So let's say that he finds it. I mean, he's already alluded that this is a high crime area and that this is a high trafficked area for the purchase and sale of drugs. So now that the guy is in the squad car and we know he doesn't have any drugs on him, even if he finds the drugs here, the defense attorney that gets a hold of this case is going to have an excellent argument that it's not his drugs. Could be somebody else's drugs. You know, he wasn't that far away from that bar. How do you know that somebody else hadn't been out there selling drugs and threw something else out there and they just happened to coincide at the same time? The standard for winning a case by a state attorney across the entire United States is that they have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And it would be a reasonable doubt that it could be somebody else's drugs if they are in that high of a drug area. I mean, like, it's not that uncommon. Like when you get a bunch of homeless people together that are doing drugs, that there's going to be all kinds of different stuff, different pieces of paraphernalia, different kinds of drugs, and so on and so forth. So it's a good argument that this guy, even if they find something, that it's not his.
What's up, man?
Well, we got one that ran. Just didn't get any dope on him.
No drugs. That's a
I
problem.
saw him when I came down Langley. I saw him over here at
He
the
knows
car.
it,
He's
so
on
you
a
can see his
bicycle.
body language.
Mel on the bike didn't want to be around us. He started away from us, and I told him to come back over here by the car. When he came back by the car, he went around the opposite side, and I couldn't see his hands. He was doing something with his hands down there. I told him to step back on this side. I was going to shake him down for weapons, and that's when he broke and ran.
All right, I have a lot of problems with this. This is the first time that he talked about the hands. You know, I couldn't see his hands. He was making some motions with his hands. In our world, we would call that furtive movements. That's what the law enforcement would say. That's probably what he would write down. I saw the suspect moved away from me. He moved to the other side of the vehicle, and he began to make furtive movements with his hands. Now, if they're inside of a vehicle, that can be a problem because they don't know if the suspect who's inside the vehicle is making a furtive movement with their hands for weapons, right? And so that's enough for the safety of the police officer to pull them out of the vehicle and do a pat down for weapons to make sure that they can't hurt the police officer in any way. In this situation, I didn't see that in the video. I didn't see him do that, and even if he did, the way that the police officer reacted to him, it happened so quickly that like any thought that this guy might be pulling a weapon was dissipated almost immediately as he ran around and ran away from them. So his recollection to this sergeant is not accurate. And I think that the reason that he's recollecting it this way is because he's trying to build a case. He's trying to build a case for wanting to search them. Oh, he moved away from me and made furtive movements. Then he could say something like, I was in fear for my safety. Then he could pat him down. But that's not what actually happened. And this is kind of the problem. Like, I think this is a bad stop because of this reason. And then this guy, after the fact, is adding to it, legally adding to it. He's saying the right things to try to like build up the stop, but I don't see this one making it past. Frankly, it might not even make it to arraignment.
Ran through this lot, through the next one. We caught him hiding behind a tree in the corner of the next lot,
too
surrounded
thrilled.
by a fence. So he'll be going to jail with us tonight for the evading it.
Good job.
For the evading. You catch that? That's it. Just the evading. Nothing else. So they're taking him to jail for fleeing and eluding, for evading a police officer when he had no reason to stop him in the first place. It's a terrible, terrible stop, in my opinion. And I hope that whoever got a hold of this case, whatever defense attorney got a hold of this case, was able to see through this one and get this guy justice. Because, you know, even if he's using drugs, police officers have a standard they should be held to. And this is a bad example of that. I don't know if this guy is like that on a regular basis. My suspicion is that he is. But, you know, it could just be because the camera's there. You know, he's trying to put on a show for the cameras. All right, so my final thoughts on this one are this is a bad stop by this police officer. He didn't have a reasonable suspicion based on what we would call the totality of the circumstances. In other words, there weren't objective facts to lead this police officer to think that some kind of criminal activity was taking place. All he said was that they were in a high crime area that was known for doing or for selling and doing drugs. And then he approached these two guys out in front of a bar. He didn't make any statements that would suggest that there was any kind of traffic infraction or any other kind of infraction that would lead him to be able to make a valid seizure of those guys in order for him to conduct an investigation. The suspect that he initially approached and ultimately ended up arresting and taking to jail for evasion of all things. He stated later in the video to his sergeant that the guy had made furtive hand motions. I went back and reviewed the clip. He clearly doesn't make any furtive hand motions in any way. This is just bad police work is what this is. And most of the cops that I watch on cops over the years, they generally do a good job. And that was my experience while I was at the public defender's office. They generally would do a good job, but this is why it's good to have video camera, because you can go back and look at the video camera. Did he have furtive hand motions? He didn't. And really, even if he did, I don't think that would have given the cop the right to stop him. Like, that guy could run away if he wants to run away. So, and then the fact that they also didn't find any drugs makes it even worse. So, anyway, if you liked it, leave me a like. If you really liked it, subscribe for more content. And I'm going to try to put more of these out as the days and weeks go on. So, thanks for hanging out.